Welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled Podcast. Are you over 40 and ready to truly thrive? Well, on this podcast, we go deep on ways to thrive across the 5 pillars of midlife: health, fitness, career, relationships, and legacy. I'm Bernie Borges, midlife advocate, life coach, and your host. Subscribe now and get ready to thrive. Well, hey, Allan, welcome to this special episode of the Midlife Fulfilled Podcast. I'm really looking forward to doing this workshop with you on health and fitness motivation. We've got the health and fitness motivation workbook here on screen. When I did the introduction, Allan, I promised my listener that they'd hear a little bit from you. So why don't we begin with your backstory, Allan?
Okay. So to get through a big chunk of it, I was a high school athlete. In fact, I would tell people I go to high school so I can play sports. That really was my mindset. Reasonably intelligent, but I really cared more about athletics than I did the schooling. That changed a little bit. I wanted to major in physics because I wanted to be an astronaut. And many of you may recall in 1986 when the space shuttle went kaboom. I'm sitting in a classroom, and because I had experience with military people, I was a military brat, had traveled all over, and I kind of understood how they think because all my stepfathers were military. When it went boom, and I had wanted to be an astronaut, and that's why I was majoring in physics, everybody else was watching swirly clouds and thinking about how interesting that was. I realized they killed a civilian and that they were going to go find every single piece of that craft until they figured out exactly what happened and how it could never, ever happen again. That's military, that's government. Because you just don't kill civilians. If it had just been a military group, they 5 years, they'd have had another flight up for sure. So I kind of felt like my whole window had disappeared for me to be able to do this dream. So I knew I needed to recollect. I went into the Army. What did I major in? Well, I majored in infantry. So again, from athletic to head to athletic. When I got out of the military, I realized, okay, I want to major in accounting. Accounting is the language of the business. I had, in fact, never taken an accounting class. Didn't even actually know what accounting was.
Wow. Wow.
But I just knew it was my doorway into business, and turned out I was pretty good at it. I enjoyed the classes. I was really good at it. I studied harder than I ever did, especially in high school, even harder than I did when I was majoring in physics. But I put it together pretty quickly, and then went out, joined. I passed the CPA exam before I graduated, which was very rare. And then I went on to a CPA firm and then into internal audit. And I did the thing. When you get into corporate, the thing is to work your way up the top, get to the C-suite, and preferably do that before you turn 40. So I was at a Fortune 500 company, the vice president of internal audit, C-suite officer at 39 years old. But I was miserable. I had lost my health. I had lost my fitness. I was in very toxic relationships. And about the only thing going for me was that job. And in fact, I worked so into it. I realized at one point I had not taken a vacation in 3 years. Not even to go visit family or anything. 3 years, I did not take even a week off. All that vacation just fell off the table every year, just fell off the table. And if you worked in corporate, you kind of know what that's all about when companies let your vacation fall off the table if you don't take it. Mm-hmm. So I convinced myself, okay, look, my birthday's in February. I'm like, I'm 39. I'm going to turn 39 years old. I'm going to go to Mexico for a week. And I walked into the place and it was beautiful. And there was a beach. It was wonderful. And I said, okay, where's the salespeople? And they're like, what? Because it was timeshare. I knew it was timeshare. And I'm like, where's the salespeople? And they're like, they're over here. I said, okay, let's go upstairs. I had a meeting the next morning with them. I bought right there. I went in knowing I was going to buy that timeshare because I needed that thing behind me to make me do something, and that spent money. If I knew if I had spent this money and now I was paying the maintenance fees, I would go. Okay, that was again just I have to do something to make myself start taking care of myself. So the next morning, I was so excited. That morning after I finished, like they had sand volleyball on the daily roster of things to do. And I was so excited. Got out on the sand. We're going to play volleyball. I haven't played volleyball since I was like 29. So again, college, just coming out of college. That's when I was still very athletic, coming out of the Army, all that. I got out on the court and I almost didn't make it through the first game. In fact, I was very close to telling them that I needed to go to the hospital because I couldn't catch my breath and really was scared. It was like, I think the first time I ever realized I could just actually just die from like nothing. Because this was not like
felt
two
like you
on
might
two.
be having a heart attack or something like that.
Yeah. Because this was not 2-on-2, which was what I had played, in 4-on-4, which is what I played competitively before. This was 6-on-6. This is take a step, bump a ball kind of stuff, So it was kind of ridiculous. And I felt that way. I felt really embarrassed about it. And so I didn't have them call. Again, there's a little bit of ego gas, but it's just silly, stupid ego. But I didn't go. I recovered. I'm like, okay. So the next morning I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I've got to do something. I've got to do something. So I made the decision I was going to change. Okay. But I was in an all-inclusive resort, so I'll change when I get back home. and so I did earnestly try. I would do something and fail, and I would do something and fail. And sometimes I would be a little bit more successful than others, but I always saw myself back where I started or worse. That went on for 8 years. So when people say I hit rock bottom, I was drugged across rock bottom for 8 years of my life.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I did do a couple of positive things in that 8 years. I did get out of that toxic relationship. I changed jobs and had a less stressful, little bit less stressful job. So I did a few things that were right, that were good. I learned a lot about myself in the process. That's for sure. You learn from failure. If you keep failing, that you learn a lot. You don't necessarily get a lot done. But then one day, it was a morning because I was in Malaysia. My daughter and I were talking. Now, she had gotten into CrossFit. She was a level 1 CrossFit coach. She was doing these obstacle course races and stuff like that. And it just reminded of me of when I was her age. So she's 20. And I'm thinking, when I was 20, I was doing that stuff. I was in the Army. I was doing obstacle courses, and if I was 20, I would be doing, the CrossFit stuff and competing at that level. So what she says to me, she says, "Daddy, would you come watch me do a CrossFit competition?" And it like hit me in the chest, it's like she could have slapped me across the face and it would have had less effect. I was like, what did she just say? Watch? And I was like, well, I never pictured myself being a spectator in my daughter's life. I always wanted to be a participant. And so that kick in the teeth, of course, yes, I did go watch her competition. I didn't say no, I'm not going to watch her. I didn't want to, but I did. I didn't like being there as a spectator, but I was. But I sat down after that call and I said, okay, I have to figure this out because I have done some really, really hard things in my life. I was in a Ranger unit in the U.S. military. I passed the CPA exam on the first try. And back then you did it with pencils and no calculator, 4 parts impressive. All at one time. Yeah. That's how you took it. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I was like, okay, wait, what is different? How can this be any harder than that? It shouldn't be. What's different? And the difference was this one word that hit me: commitment. When I wanted to pass the CPA exam, I got fanatical about passing the CPA exam. When I got into the Ranger unit, I got fanatical about fitness and being the most fit soldier in that unit.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like insane things, not insane, but just there was no off. There was no, I'm not going to do this. There was no fail. There was just okay, this is the mission. Go do it. There's no. There's no other way. What was it? The general that wanted his folks to fight like there was nothing else before. Nothing else. Just fight till the end. He burned the boats. So they get there. He says, "Burn the boats. We're either going to win or we're not. But we're not using those boats to leave here." That was the way I started approaching it. I'm like, I have to commit. I have to commit at that level. And so I got started and I kind of got into it a little bit. And then I decided, okay, and this is through a lot of mindset stuff we're going to talk about in a minute, but I realized I needed something to fire me up because I was getting work done. I was getting there, but it was just aggravating. It wasn't happening the way I needed it to. So I called my daughter up with an idea, a crazy idea, because it was no way I should be doing this at this point. It was way too early in my journey. But I asked my daughter, I said, would you like to do a Tough Mudder? Now, if you don't know what Tough Mudder is, like a 12 to 13 mile mud run. This one happened to be in Florida. So the humidity level was going to be a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. And just for fun, this is not terrain like you're just doing a 12-mile run, 13-mile run. This is terrain where they drive ATVs through. So this is rough terrain, just to even move through. Yeah. They throw in like 25 obstacles just to make it fun. In fact, when we signed up, this was the first civilian obstacle course I'd ever read about where someone died doing it.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. And it happened to be a military guy that did. He drowned. But that said, this was going to be a challenge. This was a big, scary challenge. Okay. Right in front of me, I had 8 months to prepare. And I didn't just want to go and be there. I definitely didn't want to be a spectator. So to me, defining participation with my daughter was keeping up with her, letting her run her race while I run with her. And we finished together. She didn't feel like she should run off and leave me, or she didn't feel compelled to stay back with me. We were going to run this race together at her level. That was my internal goal. And so I trained very hard. I ate right. I did all the other things right. And so over the course of that 11 months, from when I had that phone call, Daddy, will you come watch me? To when we finished that Tough Mudder together, I lost 66 pounds of fat and I gained 11 pounds of muscle.
Wow. And
so we have links later. You're going to be able to go to my website and you can go look in the about and you'll see the before. That picture is actually on that beach the morning I decided I was going to change. And then you're going to see a picture of me 9 years later. And you will see the change. Yeah. I did finish that race with my daughter and we were able to cross the finish line together holding hands. Now there's a story about why we were holding hands. We came to the end. There was this electric cables hanging down that would shock you. And I had seen it before. So I knew if you went into it and it hit you, it could put you on your face. And so they were watching people run in. There were ruts and there was water and mud and then electricity. All the things you do not want together.
Yeah, really.
Okay. And so there were like 30 guys standing there looking at this obstacle, terrified. You could just tell. It was like 30 men that did not want to do this. And I'm running up with my daughter behind them. And she says, like, what do you want to do? I said, run around them. She's like, what? I said, just run around them. She said, we're not going to wait. No, we're not going to wait. Just run. She ran around them. I ran around the other way. We met back on the other side of them. I grabbed her hand and we ran through. Did we get shocked? Absolutely. Did it hurt? Yeah. But we didn't fall on our face. We ran all the way through. Okay. So here's a little trick, guys. I majored in physics. when you hold hands with someone else, you're displacing electricity. So I did cheat a little bit.
Aha. There was a method to the
Okay.
madness
There
there.
was a
There was a
method to
reason
the
for it.
madness.
All right.
Yes. So
Got it.
I might have been a physical beast. She might have been a physical
Yeah.
beast, but we weren't that until we held hands.
Yeah.
Um, and then we got through it. But finishing that race, holding my daughter's hand, is one of the most special moments in my life.
I can only imagine. And Alan, that is quite a story and really a great backdrop to everything we're doing here on these two episodes. This is part one of the Health and Fitness Motivation Workbook. So let's segue to that. I've got a little story too, but I'm going to save it for a little bit later. Let's dive into the workbook. I want to remind my listener, perhaps watching on video, that we are displaying the workbook on screen. And if you haven't downloaded the workbook already, I want to encourage you to do that. It is available at midlifefulfilled.com/health fitness workbook. But if you just go to midlifefulfilled.com, you'll see it. So make sure you download the workbook because again, we're walking through it together. During this workshop, we're in part one. So Alan, if you want to drive and direct me to where we go, we can dive in.
We're going to start on part one, and we're going to talk about that word, commitment. Now, yes, it will benefit you a lot if you download this workbook and work through this. This is a working session. It's kind of a weird podcast, but this is not really a podcast. This is really a workshop. I want you to think of it like that. We're working together to help you put together the commitment, the motivation, the mindset to be successful in your health and fitness journey. And I'm going to tell you one thing, the tools that I've put into this workbook will help you in any aspect of your life, not just health and fitness. We are going to talk about it from that context. And so as you go through this, I want you to be thinking about, well, I could use that anything I do. And that's the truth. Why was I able to pass a CPA exam, be, in a ranger unit and do all those hard things? Commitment is commitment. When you commit to something, it's real. So that's what we're going to do here first is we're going to get you committed, and we're going to turn that commitment into action. So in part one, we're going to start with commitment. And so commitment is two things. It is a why and it is a vision. So we're going to start with the why because this is really what will keep you in the game. Okay. Why is the reason you want to do this thing in the first place. And if you say, well, I want to get in shape, and why? Well, I want to lose 20 pounds. That's not very compelling. The instant someone offers you an off-ramp to that journey, you're going to take it. But if you have a compelling why, you're going to do more. So to start with building your why, what I want you to do is I want you to think about things as they are in your current health and fitness. And particularly, I want you to think about things that you know need to be fixed. Okay. And areas that you consider is maybe your energy level isn't where you need it to be. Maybe you're starting to get the initial signs of illness. Your A1C came in a little high. So your doctor's like, well, you're pre-diabetic. We might start you on metformin. Maybe your blood pressure is a little high. Maybe your cholesterol is out of line. Maybe you're feeling some pain. Your joints are starting to bother you. Maybe there's some inflammation, some arthritis, some other things happening. Maybe you get up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you're like, who is that old man or old woman? And it's like you just realize that you're aging faster than you probably should. Okay. And you don't like it. Okay. And then how does that relate to confidence and self-respect? I can tell you when I walked into a meeting and I knew I couldn't quite button the top button. And I had one of those little bungee things and I'd have to pull my tie up so no one would know I didn't button the top button of my shirt. That really will mess with your confidence and self-respect. I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Physical things like, I'm not able to do what I was doing before. I walk up a flight of stairs and I'm breathing heavy. Used to, you could walk up, you're having a conversation with your boss or a colleague and everything's cool. And now you have to stop talking because you can't talk and walk at the same time. And then there's relationships. If the person you're with, you have self-confidence problems, you're going to wonder about that relationship. And so sometimes your health and fitness can impact the relationships around you. So I want you to go ahead and jot down some notes as we go through this page and be thinking about what's going on right now. Now, this should be emotional and this should be hard. And this is your workbook, it's not mine. So as you go through this, I really want you to be open and honest with yourself.
And Alan, I want to
Nope.
point out for the person who might be listening and not watching, or perhaps they haven't downloaded the workbook yet, we supply in the workbook boxes for you to put your notes in. So when Alan is saying, what is your why? There is a space in the workbook, a big, big space in the workbook for you to actually document your why. And Alan's going to talk about, he has been talking about your why across different aspects of your life. And again, we encourage you to document them here in the workbook.
Yeah, this is a great way for you to basically journal where you've come from and where you are and what you want. And that's what we're going to build here. So now that you've put down some of those details, oh, and that's another thing I want to say. If you need to pause this and take some time to do this, by all means do it. It's not meant to be done as a straight through either. So you may come through this one time and then want to go through it again just to get deeper, get more clarity. Okay, so when we go to the next page, what we're going to do here is we're going to future pace our life. Now, we all are on this aging curve, okay? We're going to get weaker. We're going to get frailer. And eventually, we are no longer going to be alive on this earth. So what I want you to do is I want you to be thinking about what your aging path might look like. Now, there are clues out there. A lot of times they're within our own family. So if your uncle was pre-diabetic at your age and lost his foot 7 years later, you've just future forecast your health. If you notice that your father is in a lot more pain as he got into his late 60s, that's a part of your path. If you know that your brother and their wife split up after he gained 40 pounds, that might be another thing. So be looking ahead at things that could happen if you let yourself age and you don't do anything about it, because sarcopenia will eliminate your muscle 1% per year from the age of 35 to 65, and then it accelerates.
Yeah, I don't like that reminder, Alan. I don't like that reminder because I've been experiencing that myself. I'm still working out hard, and the muscle's just not what it used to be. It's just not what it used to be.
But
Sarcopenia is very real.
you started from a better base and set yourself on a better path. And you're still working. That's what's important.
Right.
Osteopenia, which typically most people think that's for women, but it can affect men as well, is the same thing happening basically for your bones. And it follows a similar path from 35 to 65. It's about 1% a year, and then it accelerates. Now, you can also build bone by doing some work. So again, if you just followed the straight path, you're going to lose muscle, you're going to lose bone. And if you don't change your lifestyle, all those things that you're feeling right now that your health and fitness are affecting will get worse. So I want you thinking in terms of what's your aging look like. Okay. So now that you kind of have this concept of what's there, I want you to start thinking about, I don't want to lose my foot. I don't want diabetes. I don't want to lose my foot. I don't want to, whatever yours is. Okay. Now we're going to dig a little bit deeper, because sometimes what we think is emotional and real is not the real answer. And I'll give you an example as we go through this after I define it. So I use a method. It's called it's a root cause analysis. It's called the 5 whys. Used in business all the time. I used to use it when I was an internal auditor. And so what you're doing with the 5 whys is you're acting like the 8-year-old, that just keeps asking why. And then you get more depth and you get more depth and you get more depth until you don't. So I'll use my case that I told you earlier. So why was it so important for me to do what I did when I wanted to change for my daughter. So I said, I did not want to be a spectator. I wanted to be a participant. That very easily could have been my why statement. Full wet why statement right there. That's my why. Well, if you ask me why do I feel that way? It would be like, well, because I want to have a better relationship with my daughter and I want to, be a good example for her. Why? And it comes down to this: two things: self-respect and her respect.
Mm-hmm.
I want my daughter to respect me. And I want to be able to respect myself. And at that moment, when I had to tell her, when she told me, will you watch me do a CrossFit competition? I didn't feel respect for myself. And I'm not sure that she did either.
So it's very emotional. It's a very emotional, very strong conviction.
You're tearing up here if you're watching the video.
It's a very real story, Allan. So again, that's why I'm making the point that it's very emotional. And I think just to kind of bring it home to this workshop is the 5 whys method is all about doing that. I love your analogy of the 8-year-old, the small child who just keeps asking the question, why, which kind of forces one to think deeper and deeper and deeper. So thank you for sharing.
And you may notice I only got to 3 before the tears started, and I was pretty darn deep. You may go more than 5, but 5 is kind of the main number. If you get to 5 and you're feeling it, for now, this is probably big enough to get you where you want to go. Okay, so on the next page, we're literally going to sit down right now and draft your why statement. Okay. So with the why statement, like I said, mine would sit there and say, because at the time, it's changed a bit, and I'll explain that in a minute. But at the time, it should have said, I didn't have the skills I have today, but it should have said, because I want my daughter's respect and my own. That was my why statement. Mm-hmm. Why do I have to change? I have to change because I want her respect and my own. So take a few minutes here and write down your why statement.
Again, as Allan said, feel free to pause the recording right now and go ahead and draft your why statement. When you return, I'll share my quick story. At a much younger age than you, Allan, I was 24. I woke up one day after just being out of college for about a year and really kind of living it up. At least I thought I was living it up by going out drinking every night with my friends from work. And just 1 year into it, maybe even less than 1 year, I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. And kind of similar to you in one respect, I didn't respect myself when I saw in the mirror. And one day, literally like a switch that went off in my head, I just said, okay, that's it, done. I don't like this. I don't respect myself. And I committed to a healthier lifestyle and fitness. And I've been doing that ever since. And that was over 40 years ago. So, not the same story as yours, but nonetheless, it did come down to self-respect on that one morning when I woke up and I did not respect myself.
Yeah. And so, this will get emotional. Everybody will have their own why. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about what this whole path looks like. But why statements tend to be evergreen. Okay. You've carried yours for over 40 years. For me, my life has changed considerably since then. Okay. I was a corporate executive. And then as I went through my career, I realized what I had learned was valuable on the outside. And so I wanted to start coaching. So I started coaching people. And then when I got laid off, I told my wife, I don't want to do that anymore. Now, there were a lot of things that drove that decision that I don't want to get into because it's not pleasant stuff that happens at corporate all the time. But I wanted to be able to help people. I wanted to be able to make a difference. And I could do that inside a corporation for a corporation, which helps lots of people. This was more engaging. This is more fun. I also found the love of my life and got married. And so my life, and I moved to Panama. So my life has changed significantly since then. So my why has changed a little. There's more people involved. There's more who's in my why than just my daughter. But it's growing, and as I get a deeper appreciation of it, it actually drives me better because I actually can sit down and articulate it fairly quickly. And that's why this exercise can be so valuable for you, is now you can articulate. So the morning the alarm goes off and you're like wanting to hit the snooze, ask yourself why. Are you going to meet your why if you hit that snooze? Is that serving you? And so that's what this why will be, that kind of thing that'll say, no, get out of bed. Okay. Because this drives action. And that's what this is all about.
That's me every weekday morning, Monday through Friday. Alarm goes off at 5 a.m. And on some days it's easy and other days it's not easy. But that why always gets me out of bed every single weekday.
Excellent. Okay. So now we're going to get to the other side of commitment. And if you'll recall, the answer was vision. Okay. So vision is where you want to go. It's the big picture of where you want to be. Now, I've coached a lot of people and I've realized, okay, it's kind of hard to take a 40-year-old man, a 50-year-old man, a 70-year-old woman, and turn them into a CrossFit athlete. In fact, that's probably not what I should spend my time doing anyway, and I don't. What I have found is that I have a new phrase I use to define fitness, and I call it fit for task. So fit for task as a concept is what you need to be you, to be the you want to be the you need to be. Okay, so let me tell you a story. There was this guy named Glenn. Now, Glenn loved golf. He loved golf more than people. Of course, he played golf with people, but he loved golf completely. He lived on a golf course. He played golf practically every day of his life until he was around 80. So Glenn didn't do anything else but play golf and drink, enjoy his life. But we got to about 80. Glenn realized his balance was going, his strength was gone. He couldn't really hit the golf ball. Now, I've seen older golfers that play, they've still hit the ball straight down the fairway. It's just shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And so he got to a point he couldn't even hit the golf ball. And he couldn't play anymore. Now, a lot of people say, well, Glenn's 80 years old. So, okay. And it was a good run. Well, he lived till he was 95. So Glenn spent the last 15 years of his life not doing the thing he loved most on this earth. And don't you think if someone had told him when he was our age, hey, you can make a better decision. You can play golf longer if you do these things. Do you think Glenn would have done it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to take the story a little further because, like I said, Glenn lived till he was 95. Now, at the age of 90, Glenn had moved into an assisted care apartment. So he lived alone in his own apartment, not on a golf course. And he was there. So if something happened, it was single story, easy. If he fell, he wouldn't hurt himself. It was all set up for an elder care. But for him to live on his own and not necessarily be in a hospital room kind of thing. But here was the problem. Glenn couldn't make it from the chair to the bathroom before he had to go. So by the time he knew he had to go, he knew he wasn't going to make it. And then he would have to call down. They would send someone over and clean him up. And so because this embarrassed Glenn, he did not want his family to see him. So the only family, he had contact with one person, his son. That was the only person he wanted to come see him. So for the last 5 years of his life, I did not get to see my grandfather, Glenn.
Hmm. So you just revealed that Glenn was your grandfather.
Yes. Yes, that's that twist in a story you got to have, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, it's a sad story, but I tell that story because I want people to really understand what fit for task means. Because you can train for any fitness level you want to try to train for. And so if you think fit for task is the way I said, I want to be able to wipe my own butt when I'm 105.
Mm-hmm.
Now you understand why that has so much meaning to me.
Right.
Right. What do I have to do today to be that guy? And that drives me in what I do. So I no longer think of it as a workout. I no longer think of it as exercise. I don't exercise. I train. I train my strength. I train my stamina. I train my balance. I train my mobility. I train to be who I need to be. Now,
I just want to jump in. That's a really
yeah,
interesting perspective, Allan. Training versus exercising. I think I've shared the story with you. In fact, when I had you on my podcast several episodes ago, I might have told this story where I flew up to Pennsylvania to help my son move because he couldn't get buddies to help him move on a Friday. And we spent the entire day moving, very, very physical, in and out of the house with boxes up in and out of the truck, and just a very physical day. And it occurred to me that my quote unquote working out was training so that I was able to do that without blinking an eye, without any hesitation, without any huffing and puffing, without just no problems at all. And I love that perspective of training to do the things you need to do. That is really, really a different and I think very effective way to look at your entire approach to fitness and exercise, even though I know you say you don't call it exercise, but I love that.
Yeah. So, so the way I want you to think about this, and on the workbook, you're going to see a chart. Okay. This chart might not be big enough for you, but I just wanted to give you a picture of how to lay this out. And on the next page, we'll get into an example of it. But basically what you want to do here is you want to think about your current state. What are things that you need to do now? Okay. It might be that if you might have a garden at your house, you might need to be able to move 50-pound bags of mulch. You might need to be able to rake leaves in the fall and cut firewood. You may need to be able to, like me now, pick up my wife. If something were to happen and she were to fall, I would need to be able to physically pick up my wife, put her in the car, and take her to the hospital. I live in a place where we don't have ambulance service. So fastest way to get her there is get her in a car and drive. I need to be able to do that now. We run a bed and breakfast. I am if our staff isn't on staff because they get off at 1 or 2 o'clock, they come in to check in later. I'm the porter. I get to carry their bags up a flight of stairs. Sometimes guys half my age. But I need to be able to do that because that's a requirement of the job. I need to be able to carry the 5-gallon bottles of water. They weigh 44 pounds. Sometimes we get them 10 at a time, and I got to carry them to the back of the house or upstairs. So those are things I need to be able to do to function day to day. And your needs might be slightly different. And then you may think about now what you want to do. Okay. I know my grandfather always wanted to play golf. So as he started realizing his golf game was going down, he should have seen that he wants to keep playing. He needs to do something else to build his fitness. So if you've noticed things are disappearing from your life, like I used to play tennis, now I play pickleball, and then I don't know, I'm about to lose that. You don't have to lose it if you don't want to, but you're going to have to train to keep it. So there are things you need and want now. And then remember, we went down that aging curve, and a lot of things are going to happen. You're going to retire, maybe. You're going to go off and do some physical things, like maybe you wanted to go do Machu Picchu or some other kind of crazy thing, climb the Himalayas, I don't know. But you want to do something fun and all this adventure stuff. And you know that you're going to want to do those things. Well, that sets up part of your training plan. And then, of course, what you need. I need to wipe my own butt when I'm 105 because I want to be independent. I don't want someone else to have to do it. Remember that self-respect thing. I don't want my daughter to have to think about taking care of me. Remember that, her respecting me. I want to be able to take care of my wife if she falls, and I want to be able to pick her up. I need to be able to pick her up. Self-respect, her respect. All these people in my life, I want to be a better man for. So I've defined fit for task, and over the course of my life, I will consistently reinvent it, see what it is, what I need, what I want to do. Right now, we live in a beach community on an island, but my wife kind of wants to move to another community where the temperature's a little lower. It's more in the mountains. They have other things, like they do have tennis courts. I haven't played tennis in a long time. I'd like to get back into it. Maybe it's pickleball, but I'd prefer it be tennis. I might pick up golf. I haven't played golf in a long time. I haven't lived near a golf course in over 5 years. So there might be other things that come up that I want in my future. And I want to be close enough to those things now and working toward them so that if that comes up, tennis isn't a question. If and when I go back to the resort and I want to play volleyball, I play volleyball. In fact,
there you go.
just remove, like I said, we did that Tough Mudder, and like 3 years later, my daughter and I went to the same resort as a part of a trip. She was at that point a little older. We went to that resort. We played 2-man volleyball, like I did when I was a kid.
Nice.
Because I wanted to.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming up. It's February. It's coming up. I'm going to train for it. And by God, I'm going to be able to play volleyball. And it turned out we ended up playing I didn't intend to play 2-man, but I was ready for it.
Yeah.
And we played. So as you go through this chart and think about what you need now and what you want now, that's your short term. That's the go get it now, have it, enjoy it. And then you got some future things to think about. So, we talked about sarcopenia and osteopenia and all the other things. Okay, those are what you're thinking about. I need muscle mass, so I'm at a better base when I top that 65 and I start struggling against that curve. I want to be in a better place to fight it. And then once I'm fighting it, I'm going to fight it with all my heart. Okay, fit for task. And so go ahead and go through this chart. On the next page, we'll go through a quick example of mine. Again, this was built off of where I am now. And so you can kind of see when I say need, physically capable and healthy, that means, yes, I'm there for my wife if she needs me. I'm carrying water bottles. I'm carrying, furniture in some cases. I'm carrying, luggage. I'm doing all those things. I live on an island, do not own a car. So if I want to go somewhere, I walk. I need to be able to walk. What do I want? Well, because again, I want that muscle mass. I want that stuff. I want to be in a position. My daughter was doing Tough Mudders and obstacle course races and CrossFit. That didn't exist when I was a kid. When my grandkids come along, I want to be able to be a participant in their life and not a spectator. I want to be on the floor playing with them. I want to be whatever games they're playing. I want to be able to play with them. And yes, when they're in their 20s, I might just be that crazy 80-year-old that's out there doing that crazy thing that makes a Tough Mudder look silly. I don't know, but I'm going to try because I want to. I want to be able to. So my future is laid out here. If my present and future is laid out here, so you can kind of get an idea that I'm in this for the long haul. I have this one body and I'm going to make it fit for task.
And all of this fits under vision, and that really kind of brings it home for me, Alan, because it's about what is your vision for your life now, what is your vision for your life in the future, and then you break it down between things I need, things I want now, things I need now, and things I want, things I need in the future, and things I want in the future. So makes a ton of sense, and really just a great way to frame it all up.
Yeah. And unlike why, this will change. This will change all the time. Like I said, right now we don't even have any blood grandchildren. So, you know, they haven't even started. My daughter's in her 30s and they haven't even started having kids. So when I say she's in her 20s, I'm not kidding. I'm going to probably be in my 80s before these kids graduate from college. So, I don't know what they're going to be doing then, but I want to be a part of it. I don't want to be rocking chair grandpa.
Well, I can relate. I mean, I've got three grandchildren and a fourth on the way at the time of this recording. The only downside for me is they don't live nearby, but when we do see them, I'm all over playing with them. So I'm with you 100%.
All right, so let's go ahead. Okay, so now this is the cool part. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to take those two concepts, why this is so important, and the vision of what it looks like, and I want you to blend those two things together to make a commitment statement. Now, because your why is so compelling and your vision is real, this should be very emotional. I equate it to getting married. When you got married, there was an emotional appeal. There was emotion behind it, a lot of emotion behind it. There was a vision of what your lives would be like together today and then going into the future. A lot of people have already determined we're going to have two kids and we're going to name them Rebecca and Nicholas. I only had Rebecca. Okay. But you kind of get the idea. You go into these things with a lot of emotion and a vision of what your life is going to be like. And I want you to put that on paper right now. And this is your rock. This is your foundation. Okay. Now, when we get married, we do things like put on a wedding ring, and sometimes we'll renew the vows. I want you to do things in your life that make this real and make it a part of every day. I want you to have reminders of it. I want you to repeat it. I want you to feel it every day. Anytime you feel like quitting, anytime you find yourself off the path, this is your rock. This will get you back because you know what you need, your vision, and you know why you need it, your why.
Alan, go ahead and read your commitment statement. It's on screen here for those that are watching. For somebody might be listening, they're not seeing it. So go ahead and read your commitment statement.
Okay. And this is a current one. It can change again because right now it's this. But I say, I, Alan, am committed to improve my health and fitness because I want to look and feel younger longer. I want to remain active and independent as long as possible to be there for my family.
Yep. And I love the fact that reading it out loud or saying it out loud actually makes a difference. So it's not just writing it down, but revisiting it often and then actually saying it out loud. And there's some neuroscience in that, which I don't think we'll get into. It's a little bit of a tangent from this workshop, but suffice to say, there's a little neuroscience in there. When you say something out loud, it actually has an impact on you more than just reading it from.
Well, if you've read Robert Cialdini, he does a lot of marketing research, and there's a one of the principles in that is called the consistency theory. And what it means is when we say something, we want to be consistent to our words. It's how we become a part of society, being trustworthy. So when you say something like this, you're programming your brain to do this. because it's hearing that and it wants you to be consistent with what you've said. So you're making this commitment to the world, to yourself. Your brain is going to wire to help you be more consistent.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. So let's jump to the next one. Okay. So they say, if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. Mike Tyson also says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Okay. So you pick your favorite one, but the basic thing is you do have to have a plan. Okay. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to take a few steps and we're going to start thinking about what do we need to do first out of that vision. My vision seemed pretty broad, but I got to know the first step. And so I want you to start thinking about first steps that you need to make. So you've heard Bernie and I talk about bone and muscle loss. So you might think, yeah, I definitely need to do some strength training. Or you may realize, yeah, these medications I'm on, my doctor's told me if I lose some weight, I'll probably get off some. I can probably get off of some of that, or at least I won't get more. So weight loss might be part of this. It might be that you've got some injuries and yeah, you might have to have a hip or a knee replaced first. So there are going to be some things you need to do, the first steps to getting you fit for tasks, for getting you where you need to be. And so just start jotting down a few of those. And we're going to take those ideas and we're going to make them tangible so you can get them done. Okay.
Yep.
So now on the next step, I want you to think about prerequisites. Too often we think we want to do something and we don't realize there's probably a couple prerequisites first. Okay. A big one. Talk to your doctor before you start any exercise program or make drastic changes to your diet. That's a prerequisite. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So there are probably going to be
exclamation point.
Yes. So there are going to be some prerequisites for you to get these things done. Okay. And so you may know, okay, I need to build stamina, but I don't really have anything at home to do that. And the weather here in January is impossible for me to do what I would want to do. I'm going to need access to a piece of equipment. Same thing with strength training. I may need some equipment. Does that mean you buy it yourself? Does that mean you join a gym? I don't know yet, but I want you to start thinking about what are those prerequisites. If you were going to say, okay, I'm going to train for this, I'm going to train for stamina, you may need to buy a treadmill or an elliptical. You may need to join a gym where those are available. Same thing with strength training. So as you think about what you know you need to do first, think about the prerequisites first. Okay, go to the next page. Okay, now we've identified a few first steps. So maybe it is, yes, I do need to join the gym and I'm going to start eating a more healthy diet. Now, those are a little general. Joining a gym, maybe less, but one, I got to go to the gym to join the gym. I can't just decide I'm a member, show up. So there might be some micro steps, and those micro steps are valuable to know. So joining a gym, there's actually a lot of micro steps. There's getting in your car, driving to the gym, going inside, asking for someone to help you, going through the materials with them, walking around, and then, yes, signing the agreement. And you walk out a brand new gym member. Okay. So there's some micro steps there. And the reason we want to kind of know these micro steps is going to be evident in a minute. But I just want you to kind of know that if we find quick wins and we find an opportunity to break our goals down easier, we get more done and we feel better about it. So a quick win for, one, joining getting ready to do strength training could be that gym membership. We're recording this on a Tuesday. And if you wrote a goal that says, I'm going to go and get that gym membership on next Monday. What? Okay. No, I'm going to get the gym membership tomorrow. I've got my lunch break. I can drive on over there. It's not far from the office. It's actually very convenient to the office. I'm going to go over there and join the gym tomorrow. That's a quick win. You're going to feel good just on the first day. I did that thing. They walked me through, showed me how the equipment worked. I know I'm going to be a little bit sore tomorrow, even though it wasn't really a workout. That's a big win. So think about these micro steps as ways to make sure that you're getting the wins when you need them.
Alan, I think you know that I look at this in another way, not in a way that disagrees with this, but I just kind of reframe it in my mind around the concept of incremental progress. So to take your gym story a little bit further, so I've joined the gym, and it's either my first time in my life or a long time. So I'm going to start out going 1 day a week. And then I do that for about 4 weeks. And then I'm going to go to 2 days a week. And I'm going to do that for a few weeks. And then I'm going to go 3 days a week. And you get the idea that incremental, those micro steps is incremental progress. Then you can look back after a few months and go, wow, I've made a lot of progress. They were in these little micro steps or incremental progress steps. And it really, really does add up.
It does. It does. And that's how we build. It's one brick at a time, but eventually we end up with a wall and then a building. Yep. Okay. I'm going to warn you, as you go through these goals, you don't want to just make 100 goals. It's just that next page. You can keep going, Bernie. But you don't want to make a whole bunch of goals, because you're just basically setting yourself up to fail. You want 1 or 2 good goals. Maybe 3, depending on how you're looking at this. But if you can write a good goal, and you start hitting those goals consistently, then you do get that incremental growth that we were talking about, that Bernie was talking about. So the way we're going to do that, and what I'm doing here is, again, I'm stealing from business. There's no reason to recreate the wheel. If it works,
that's right,
swipe it and reuse it. But here's one of the fundamental things I found that was broken with most health and fitness goals. Most health and fitness goals focused on the outcome. I want to lose 25 pounds. I want to get stronger. I want to fit in a smaller suit or dress. Okay. Those are outcomes. They're wonderful outcomes. We feel really good when it happens, but they're not completely within our control. I can't wish fat to drop off my body. I can't wish muscles on my body. I have to do something to make that happen. And if I know what that is, that's the action I should be striving for. So I'll use Bernie's example. Okay. The action, I'm going to go to the gym. So Bernie joined the gym. Now Bernie wants to go to the gym 1 day per week. So perfect SMART goal, because 1, what's the action? Go to the gym. Yep. You might want to add workout while you're there, but it's a good act. If getting there is the hard part, then get there. And then the next week it's like actually go in the door. And then the next week it's actually do something. But the action is going to the gym, doing the workout. Okay. So he goes in and he says, because I know who Bernie is. Bernie is Bernie. Bernie's going to do that on Monday morning, just to be sure he got it done. Okay. So, but action, I'm going to go to the gym and do a workout. Okay. 1 day a week. That's very specific. So the action is A. S is specific, which is part of the SMART goal acronym. I just added the A. It's measurable. So at the end of the week, if Bernie went to the gym at least 1 time, he knows he's completed that goal. It's achievable because Bernie didn't say 2 times a day, 7 days a week. Okay. He knew who he was and he made it something that he could achieve. And then it's relevant because Bernie knows from his Fit for Task, he needs to optimize his muscle building, his strength, his muscle mass and bone density. And he knows that the resistance training tools at that gym are the best way for him to achieve that. So this is very relevant to his Fit for Task goal. I mean, overall. And it's time bound, once per week. Okay. So he's not, that may not seem like a big deal when it's just one, but if Bernie tells me his goal is he wants to go 3 times per week, and Bernie waits till Saturday to get started, and the weekends on Sunday, he's not going to get those done. So capping it a week kind of does give him a little bit of a deadline to keep him focused. If it's 4 times per week, he's probably going to want to front load some of this work. So having that time bound is important. Another thing about time bound is make it tight enough that you can measure it and feel good, get those quick wins. Don't go long term, because now you've kind of lost the thing. It's like, I want to do 300 workouts this year. Okay. Yeah, there's no drive. There's nothing there. The only thing is if you make it past March and haven't gone once, this is going to be a struggle.
It's not going to happen.
Right. And so that's all But so once a week, once a month, maybe for some things, but make it an action, make it something that's measurable, make it specific, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And that will help you write a good goal that you will know you're succeeding when you're doing it. Okay. Now there's a link on this worksheet. If you have more than one goal to write, which throughout this work, we're going to add some goals to this to help you be successful. Each time you feel like you need another goal, you can click that link on the goal sheet. That will let you download basically another version of this goal sheet. So you can have those printed out, ready to go, write down your goals. As you change your goals over time, again, come back to the goal sheet, get a new one, print it out, and on and on. So you can always have these done. You can have them written, which is hugely important. There's studies that show a written goal is so much higher likelihood of being completed than a thought up goal that's in your head. It's not even close. It's like a 6-to-1 ratio of success with a goal. And you want to bump that up more, tell someone about it, share it with them, and ask them to hold you accountable. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, or I guess we're going to talk about that tomorrow or the next week. But this is the way you get this done. So if you write these out, you inscribe them on your brain that they're important, you can see them regularly. And if you've asked someone to show you, now that consistency principle kicks in and the accountability kicks in, and you're going to be much more successful at this goal if you do that thing. So print these out, write them out, and then we're going to take the next step. So the next step is just to make sure we didn't overreach so that we're going to demotivate ourselves, because it's kind of demotivating if you set goals for yourself and you're missing them. Now, I'm all for stretch goals in a lot of circumstances, but if you keep setting stretch goals that you don't hit, it can become very demotivating. So in the very beginning, I don't want you to set stretch goals. I want you to set goals that are almost like no-brainers, okay? So I want you to rate your confidence based on the goal that you just wrote, how confident you feel you can do this. So 1 means I don't think I can do it at all. It was probably silly to write it down. So if I had said I was going to complete a Tough Mudder by November of that year, and that was my goal, I'd have given it a 1 because I was not very confident the day I signed up. As I got closer, my confidence went up, but that's not how we want to do goals. So a 1 means you don't think you can do it. A 7 means you're absolutely certain you can do this thing. And so if you look back at your why and your vision and that commitment, it will drive you to do hard things. It will drive you to write goals that change you. But you want to be confident that you're not overreaching. So like Bernie's example of 1 per week was perfect. How confident are you that you can go to the gym and do a workout once per week this next week?
So, Allan, you said you want us to start out with sort of easy and attainable goals. I like that because it gets us into the habit, into the mindset of documenting the goals, very specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. And then when we achieve them, then it gives us motivation, right? Which is important to this whole workshop. It gives us motivation to keep adding goals and maybe upping them up a little bit, right? Getting a little bit more ambitious with some of those goals, but
Yeah.
starting out very realistic and not being over ambitious on the front end of this whole process.
Right. And so that's where in the fit for task, the vision statement thing, we're looking at what we want, what we need. That's the bare minimum. We got to get there. Okay. So we'll set goals to make sure we get there, but there's things we also want on top of that. And so that's where we'll take these goals and we'll say, what do I need to accomplish that? Once you get what you want, once you get what you need for the now, you can set goals. So you're training for what you want. So an example, let's say you had no intention of doing this, but you got out, you were walking and you consistently walking and your smart goals were getting you more and more miles. You were really building your conditioning. And then you put a couple of jogs in there as a part of your goals. And then you step up and say, okay, I'm going to basically sign up for a 5K and I'm going to train for it for 2 months away. And so now your A-Smart goals are to train more to be able to do. Maybe you download an app. It's a Couch to 5K app, and it has 5 workouts a week, 2 rest days. You say, okay, my goal is to do the full 5K to couch to be ready for this 5K I want to do in 2 months' time. And the easiest way to say that is I'm going to do all of the Couch to 5K workouts for this week. This week. There's 5 of them. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant. And the action is doing those. And they're documented inside the app. So I get started. I feel confident I can do it. Boom, we're on it. By the end of the 2 months, you're doing that 5K. And so this is just a function of building and moving in the direction. Maybe initially you had no intention of ever running a 5K or a half marathon or anything else. But as you start to see what's possible, your vision can change a little bit and you can say, hey, I want to do this thing. What do I need to be able to do this thing? You break it down, you look for prerequisites, and then you sit down and start writing the goals necessary to bridge that gap. All right. So that is the end of part 1. Join us. You can join us next week when we're going to get into part 2 and start talking about 2 of my favorite topics is mindset and motivation, because we've laid the framework to be successful going forward. We know why we need to do this. We know what it looks like. We know that we have the tools to keep us doing the things that move us in that direction. But invariably, little boogers get in the way. And we're not successful, even though we've made them no-brainer goals. We've done all this other stuff. There's still opportunity in the world for us to just not quite get there. And I want to talk about that next time.
Yep. So just to recap, we began with understanding your why, which, as you said, can be very evergreen, and then establishing your vision, which doesn't necessarily have to be evergreen. That can change over time. And then setting your plan, setting goals behind that. We provided a link for additional go sheets. So make sure you've got a good supply of those go sheets. And then join us on part 2 of this workshop, where we're going to begin with a concept known as the motivation map. So on that note, we'll wrap up for this episode here. We'll see you on the next episode. Allan, I look forward to continuing on this journey with you.
Me too, Bernie. I'll talk to you then.